today, I want to just introduce Zhou Zhixing, who will then introduce the rest of the group. You know, Mr. Zhou is a great friend of the committee, is the convener of meetings in Beijing that are truly some of the most fascinating discussions that we can ever hope to have, and in many ways represents the future of what China is. And the people he has brought here are an extraordinary collection of accomplished people who I could spend our entire hour just introducing each of and every one of them, but you have their biographies, so I will do nothing more than turn it over to Mr. Zhou, our old friend.
Thank you.
给我2分钟的时间，我想应该把翻译的时间刨出去才对。
I'm only given 2 minutes, but I
要不然我
think,
就只剩1分钟了。
but I think we should take out the time of translation. Otherwise, I'm only left with 1 minute.
非常高兴能够来到这里，我跟美中关系全国委员会已经有很长时间的交往了。
It's my great pleasure being here. I have known the National Committee for a long, long time.
刚才欧文斯先生碰到一位女士说，她跟他有30多年的交情。我说我也是30多，但是是30多个月。
Mr. Orlins just ran into some nice lady, and they were talking with each other about having known each other for over 30 years. I said, I have known him for over 30 months.
其实呢，时间的长短不是问题，我们在这么短的时间里面能够有这么深的交往，就说明我们有共同交往的基础，能够成为更好的朋友。
The length of time is not the crucial issue here. The real key is how well we understand each other. And like between me and Mr. Orlins, the fact that we could develop such a deep relationship within such a short period of time actually illustrates what a good foundation we have for the future.
我这次来是和我们几位，如果说是一个代表团的话，就是和我们几位团员一起，他们都是中国学术方面各个领域里的顶尖的专家。
For this trip, I'm here with me the top experts from various fields from China.
一会儿如果有时间的话，我希望有一个时间让他们自己来介绍，我就不占用我的2分钟时间了。
If we have time, I'll let each of them to introduce themselves to you so that we'll not take more time from my 2 minutes.
今天我还特别请了，在纽约学习的2个年轻人，都是我们的朋友的小孩儿，他们，我认为这些年轻人也是中美交往的下一步的桥梁。
I have also invited to join us 2 young people who are studying here in New York, who are kids of our friends back in China. I do believe they represent the future of U.S. China relations. They actually could further the relationship as a bridge.
去年白丽娟小姐曾经带了10几位中青年的美国学者到我们家，我想我们这次算是一个回访。
Last year, Ms. Jen Barris took about a dozen young American intellectuals to my house in Beijing, and this is like our return trip.
希望通过我们的交往，能够在美中关系遇到某些问题的时候，能够更顺利的前进；如果没有什么问题的时候，能够推动它更快的发展。
I hope through exchanges like ours, we could help facilitate the development of U.S. China relations. So when there are some obstacles, our relationship can help overcome those obstacles. And when everything is going smooth, we can make it better.
谢谢今天到场的各位朋友，谢谢欧文斯先生，也谢谢美中关系全国委员会。
Thank you for everybody. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Lots of thanks to Mr. Orlins, Ms. Barris, and the National Committee on U.S. China Relations.
我想我现在可以坐下了。
Now I'm going to sit down. 下面你们哪位先开始？
Oh, okay. Okay.
thanks for inviting me to come here. My name is Li Weishen, but my pin name is Weishen. It's also call me Strategy General in Chinese and also in the Financial Times. Last year, I published in year 2012, I have the 3 headline papers in Financial Times. I said the Chinese economy is just slowed down. 12 to the one step. Also, we have the different argument with just in if we believe that the Chinese economy still have another maybe 20 years, more than 8% growth. Today, with a very limited time, I just cut my PPT to half, but still I just explain what's wrong. Okay. 5分钟 Okay. Okay. Now, why I come to this conclusion is because what the Lord Keynes said, the broad conclusion to which I should draw the particular attention to historian is extraordinary correspondence between the period of profit and inflation and deflation, respectively, with those of national rise and declining. This sentence means that you judge one country's economic growth, not look at the figure from the national statistical bureau, but from the every company. If every company, every firm make money, this means the economic growth. If everybody, profit rate slow down, the economy will, the high period growth will, come to the end. That's what my methodology to the economic growth. That's the China's growth. The total GDP, you see, 3 reform. The general 3 momentum of Chinese economic growth. Also you see the growth rate is okay. You see one. That's land reform, the cultural reform. That's why the Deng Xiaoping have the tour to the Shenzhen. That's China come to the WTO, entry WTO, the 3 economic growth. But with use this one, you can find the potential growth rate of Chinese economy also have three the momentum. But since 2007, the potential growth rate is slowed down. That's the figure is done by one leading economist in China, by Huang Haizhou. But just before come here, I did research myself based on this one. I used the SP, the SP, the methodology, use the long-term growth rate of China. We find also China come to the economy come to slow down. I have no time to explain how to do that, but you can see the Chinese economy slow down is the general trend. Also from this figure, you see that the PPI is 20 more than 2 years. Oh, okay. Oh, wait, okay. It's 24 months, 2 years. All the negative. This means the recession in the high speed growth. It's already PPI then more than 2 years. Also from this one, you can see the Li Keqiang index. All show the Chinese economy is slowed down. Okay. Also, recently until the January this year, the SSBC, PMI is a slowdown. Also slowdown here. You see the America and Europe, the more than 54, 53, but China under the 50. This means the trend this year, 2014, should be economy maybe further, the growth rate will drop further. Also, why the Chinese economy, the slowdown, you can find 3, components of the growth. First, the export in China is now it's come to the top, I guess. I know the Chinese, the made in China or factories in China now is losing competitiveness in the world. The 4 factor contribute to this trend because the labor cost is rising. Now the labor cost in China are calculated higher in Hungary and Russia. It's even come to Malaysia. Also the heavy tax burden and the appreciation of the RMB Chinese yuan, also the high cost of financing. If you do business in China, you find that if you borrow money from China, you cannot get any loans below 10%. Maybe for small business, about 30%. How the company can make money? The four factors lead to the Chinese economy. The Chinese firms, the made in China not competitive in the near future. Another one is the investment. Investment, you can divide it with three factors. One is the property market. One is the government investment on the public infrastructure, and the investment of the factories. The fixed assets investment. All three is come down. The investment also the slow down. The consumption not increasing, but also slow down. The figure shows in the last 20 months, Chinese consumption also slow down. These three surface phenomena tells the Chinese economy is slowing down. But this is just the surface phenomena. Also, the deeper problem for the Chinese economy is all kind of the industry and its profit come to the negative, include the standalone and foreign capital and private sector. All you see come to down. That means the Chinese economy has some deeper problem. This figure, until the recent figure, I found that you say it's not really make money, but the investment is still going up. The bank loan going up, but the profit going down. That's have some potential the risk for the future economy. Also, like Justin maybe he just Lin Yifu, he has the speech in the last month in New York Stock Exchange. He still emphasizes that China should rely on the further investment to keep the Chinese economic growth rate at more than %. But from this figure, you can say you cannot do that anymore because now the ratio current construction investment with the GDP now it's 2012. It's nearly finished. Okay, it's 33%. You from figure you see that it's still really on the highway investment to keep the economic growth. That's the figure tells that. Also, because in China, the investment is borrow money from the bank, not from the exchange. The stock market said lot of risk, put in on the bank. That's what I just found a figure before I come here. That's the Royal Bank of Scotland of the economy. He said the Chinese economy is no problem at all. He said that that's the debt and 这个存贷比哈，就是 saving and deposit ratio. But our calculation is around here. In the 2007, the American what happens in here, the Chinese they have the financial process. That's the Japanese have the process, but the Chinese the ratio of the deposit is around here. But still no problem. I think for the Chinese economy, we have three safeguards for the Chinese economy for the current situation. The savings still excess of the investment. We got 106 trillion of the all kind of the bank reserve ratio, plus surplus of in current account also substantial foreign reserve of 3.8 trillion US dollars of foreign reserve. Another one is we thanks for Mr. Zhou Zhixing, the governors of people of Bank of China required reserve ratio on deposits still higher than 24.5%, hold 20 trillion of deposits in the central bank. So if some problem is still got this one, that's the no short term, no problem for Chinese economy, no process yet. So my conclusion just Chinese economy is slow down, but may not next 10 years cannot maintain the growth rate. Then then 10%, 8%, but still 5 to 7% still quite high. Also, I just left it here for my presentation. Still too long, maybe. Okay, thank you.
You know why the China economy develops so fast. They occupy too much energy and time. Okay, I will make timer. The year I was born, this committee established, and I grew up to go to Fudan University to study international relations, so I knew what exactly we did for the past 47 years, and some I read in my textbook. So it's a much honor for me today here. And I stand here as a student, and a student to you, and I want to report to you what I and my friend did in China through the internet for the past 10 years. Dare to say, proudly to say, we are doing the same job. And we in China through the internet to help the Chinese people to understand American. And you know in China, the non-profit organization was not allowed to establish in the past. But don't worry, we have an unpaid blogger writer and micro-blogger writer. I am one of them. And for the past 10 years, we use the internet to, in the past, the Chinese people have a very little influence on the policy-making process, not like U.S. But the internet come, a little bit change. There are many internet writers, including here, Xinija, my friend. We wrote a lot of articles, introduce countries like Japan, Europe, especially American, to the Chinese reader. And you may know why we do this, because our official media, the 5,000, sometimes they just publish certain opinion and review certain facts. Of course, sometimes it's right, but when the period of crisis, that always mislead people. So at that time, we should do something to help people understand. In the long run, I knew there was big power relationship. That on the top is that between government, the mutual understanding, recognize and respect each other's core interest. But in the long run, I think that between people, understanding is more important. So what I wrote for the past years for 500,000 Chinese word about America, only about America, 500,000 word. And my blog was read by 200 million times. And Ms. Xing on the top of China was read by 300 million times. I think many people know America through our blog. And it's complicated to explain what we wrote, but just give a very simple example, okay? The former Defense Secretary, Robert Gates, wrote a book, Slam White House leadership. Okay, that may be true. Sometimes I don't like White House either. But when some certain official, Chinese official media publish this news, they emphasize too much on the dark side, and even twisted something. For the Chinese young reader, the reader who may have never chance to come out, have never ability to read or prohibited English book. That's misleading. They read this news, they will dislike and hate America, even the American's political system. That's common in China. And what we do, that's the blogger and micro-blogger we do. For example, in China, we will say, in this situation, it's very simple. We say, just think about it, give a second thought. This former officer in the United States, they can criticize the White House and the president. That's great, right? So we do this, the people. So more Chinese people go online, and recently you notice more Chinese people are become friendly to the United States, right? That's a fact. But unfortunately, I noticed a poll, and also my own feeling. The more and more American people grow unfriendly to Chinese. So I think that's your job, okay? Through internet, we do a lot of grassroots work to influence ordinary Chinese people. And this definitely have impact on China's foreign policy making and prevent a small number of people making unwise decisions to their own benefit. Oh, my time is finished. Where is my time? Thank you very much.
My topic is about state building the future of Chinese governance. In terms of governance, China, as a country, we have a long history, something like 4,000 years. Yes, and long history usually means historical heritage everywhere, and also we may be characterized by historical burden. What's the burden for the impact on governance? You can find very strong ideas for, or very strong traditional idea of governance that is ruled by morality. And we also have another heritage that may be historical burden, that is flexible command and control administrative system. You cannot see very developed policy making in politics in Asian China, but we might find some very efficient policy implementation that might correct some mistake. Even that means even the emperor made bad policy, the smart administrators, they can correct the policy in the process of implementation. And the common sense told us that traditional government is not compatible with the economic development. But what happened in China during the last 3 decades is economic miracle coexists with political stagnation in traditional governance. So somebody may reckon that it is a Chinese model of state building for developing countries that is an alternative to Western model. Even some political scientists in this country may agree with this Chinese model because they focus on political stability and administrative capacity more than on democratization, rule of law, and decentralization, or even individual liberty. They prefer stability and capacity over individual liberty, rule of law, and something like this. They are composed of basic elements of modern governance. But if you want developed market economy, including goods and service market, you can have high quality goods and service, or you may have high quality property market or financial market or systematic development banking system. You need good governance. They are not compatible with the traditional regime. So you have to have individual freedom, self-governance, limited government, and rule of law. But in China, we find the market economy grows very rudely. Even for property market, they are not very perfect. For securities market, we have a very good economy in terms of GDP, but we don't have very good security market. In China, we have lots of saving, but we don't have developed financial and banking market. Even for individual freedom, individual freedom sometimes grows very rapidly, but changed by periodical breakdown. We have some program, lots of program for promoting self-governance at grassroots level, in especially in homeowner association in community. But without the support of state framework, it grows sometimes and it declines very quickly. So we have observed the quick development of modern governance. We have some government reform initiative in government, but we find sometimes it failed very quickly. You can observe very quick, very fast development of democracy at the village level, but sometimes it disappears overnight. So even for limited government, we want to separate, we want to establish buffers between government and enterprises, to establish buffer between government and public service system, or even for public budget and banking, or public finance and everything between government and civil society or anything else. We also want to do something about the rule of law. But rule of law sometimes is very strong, but sometimes very weak. So how to develop the modern governance or establish a modern state in China? It is not a way to moving the stone up a mountain at the daytime, but the stone rolls down at night. You do nothing about the development of modern governance. You are still stuck in traditional regime. So I'm always thinking about how to break this great block. Fundamental development of open market economy, civil society, grassroots self-governance, the development of republic for public policy, they are very important. But for peaceful and successful transitions for traditional regime to modern governance, the key might be to activate the working of National People's Congress and the local People's Congress. So for many political science, they focus on the development of administrative capacity. That is the wrong way. That is the experience of United Kingdom, Germany, Japan, or even for Taiwan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone here, giving me a chance to talk something about religion in China. Try to finish in a couple of minutes. As you know, religion is always a very high sensitive issues in China. I don't know whether I can make a clear explanation or no. The general situation in China on religion is religion believers in China keep growing rapidly. And according to the academic study, some scholars did a survey a couple of years ago. At least in China today, we have 300 million believers. They include some the religion unrecognized. Maybe more than that, but won't be below that. Another thing is the conflict and the tension between religion and government that's more and more visible. The third thing is for religion is government has to use the policeman to deal with the religion believer, which was very unusual It's only in some special cases. Now it becomes more and more popular and normal. So it's very difficult to use the government's office only deal with religion without, policemen. So these three things makes, just say this is 3-1, but more than that, this is a general picture. So one hand, the number of religion believers keep growing. Another hand, our policy, no solution. You can imagine. Why is that? Because the main reason is the religion policy is far behind the religion's growing. Time changed, China changed, great change taken place in the past 30 years, but the policies no change, still based on the 1950s, 1960s, the Soviet Union's models. Another reason is the concept, the Marxism's view on religions hasn't been changed yet. So whether religion is a positive elements or negative elements in society is a big question mark. According to the textbook, it should be considered as a negative one, but in reality, more and more people join the religion. So whether people should have a new faith or keep the old faith or no faith is never discussed on the media. So it becomes an issue for everyone themselves. The last reason for all the problem is there is no law on religion. There's no comprehensive law which passed by People's Congress. So the religion issue, all the problem is out of the rule of law. Since there's no law on religion, so what is right, what is incorrect, what's wrong, it's hard to judge it. So the only solution, as I see, is we have to change the concept. Without the conceptual change on religion, it's really hard. More than that is we must have a rule of law on religion, switch the power from administrative management on religion to the rule of law. Otherwise, there's no solution. So if we can solve this problem, religion could play the big role, positive role in society for the ruling part, for the government. Otherwise, will be a bigger challenge. Thank you.
This really gives you a flavor of what it's like when you visit Mr. Zhou in Beijing, that you have these very diverse expertise that he tries to bring together. So, I thank you all for your presentations. I know trying to do it in 5 minutes is virtually impossible. So let me ask one question which tries to draw all 4 presentations together. And let me start the question with Professor Li's kind of theory. What he seems to be suggesting is that we're going to see slowing growth in China, that the economic miracles that we've seen will continue, but we will see a gradual decline in the rate of growth. Not predicting disaster, but predicting slower growth. So my question would be, for all 4 of you, first for Professor Li, is that a fair summary of your kind of thesis? And then the question is, what are the consequences of that for the internet? What are the consequences of that for governance? And what are the consequences of that for the ability of Chinese to follow the religions which they believe in? Will this slowing growth precipitate changes in your field of expertise? Start with you, Professor.
Okay. Someone said maybe the justing maybe too optimistic, cosmetic. But even
Personally, I should say that Justin makes those predictions at a National Committee on U.S. China Relations program
here.
at the New York Times.
Say the Justin, it's not everybody.
Oh, Justin Lin.
Justin Lin, Justin Lin.
Linny Fu.
Linny Fu, yeah, Justin Linny Fu,
Former chief economist of the
Okay.
World Bank, who is
Yeah.
now a professor, is now at the China Center for Economic Research in Beijing.
That's right, yeah. But even Chinese economy, the growth rate dropped to the 5 to 7%. It's still very high. So if in the next 20 years still, keep the sustainable rate of the 5 to 7, I think the Chinese society still no big problem for the society. But if you push forward the investment more, maybe China come to the financial crisis. Maybe something wrong. Maybe the lot of rural farmers they work in the southeastern of the area. They come back. They cannot doing some farmland. Maybe some problem for the Chinese society. Also, the people, the young people, they lost job. New graduates, them every year 4 or 6 million cannot find a job. That's a bigger problem for the instability of the future Chinese economy. That's my.
Yong, what do you think the implications would be?
I think the government have to listen to the people and workload follow the people's opinion on internet, and they even to invent a kind of new kind of China's characteristics, a new kind of democratic form. For example, the people will join to in a common management of the country, and they listen to the people's voice, but not by the election to manage the government.
Kind of a consultative democracy through the internet.
Because anything avoid the election.
Professor Mao, the implications for slower growth for governance and what is it?
So slowing down the economy means we need a new reform for new profit. In 1980s, we have some marketization reform of consumption goods. So we make starvation disappear, especially in 1980s. In 1990s, we privatize the enterprises and let businessmen can establish their own private enterprises. So there's another reform for economic development in 1990s. And joining WTO, that makes China a manufacturing country. And in 1998, we privatized the housing, public housing. So we have housing bubble. So bubble is very strong in China. There's not a real bubble because in terms of banking, in terms of financial, that is very strong. And for next step, maybe deregulation of banking and financing market. Maybe even for more good governance, we have more profit, reform profit. That's the way to have good governance, maybe.
On religion, implications?
Whatever happened on religion in China, the bottom line is whether China should have religion freedom or not. Religion freedom, religious tolerance, church-state separation, and the rule of law on religion. Without all these kind of things, it's no solution or no peace. So religion is not just a single issue. It's always combined with some other things It really depends where and what kind of religion, like in Tibet, Tibetan Buddhism, or in Xinjiang, the Islam. So if the religion has, there's no change, fundamental change on religion policy, it could be cause a problem which is like a big surprise. I just want to say people talk lots or loudly on many other issues and never mention the religion loudly on the media. Of course, outside of China, media always talk something about religion in China. But for the Chinese government and people, we may not pay enough attention on this kind of issues. But it never means this is a small deal or small issue. So in the future, it's not just the implement, it's not just some area or some regional change. It has to be a fundamental change, constitutional change. The whole mechanism, whole system on religion has to be changed. It's related.
Let me bring in some of your distinguished delegation. Professor He, do you think that this slowing growth has implications for the rule of law, for the changes that you advocate that China undertake? Does slowing growth and increasing, and one assumes on slowing growth you have increasing dissatisfaction. Does that help, hurt, or no effect on reform, on legal reform?
Well, I think maybe, right now, China government's legitimacy is highly depend on the economic growth. It is only thing support the government. Since no people believe communist theory or communist target. So maybe if the economic we made some problem in the crisis about economic, maybe it will be enforced the Communist Party and the Chinese government to seek more legitimacy elements in China. For example, rule of law. For example, democracy. I think maybe that's the future, the good future for all of us. Thank you.
Does it seem, this would be, again, for any, does it seem that the third plenum of the 18th Party Congress program suggests that the leadership understands the underlying problem and they're moving, even though they recognize a slower GDP growth, the quality of that growth is going to improve? That it will be less investment-based, be more environmentally friendly, and for each point of GDP growth under the third plenum, you get more jobs because it's more service-oriented rather than manufacturing-oriented. Is that true, do you think?
Okay,
Yes.
I think that both of the presidents, Xi Jinping and Li Keqiang, he said that we should, it's impossible to keep the rate of high speed like the 20 years before. Now he realized that the general trend of slow down Chinese economy. What Professor He Weifang, he said, that because all the Chinese government, the Chinese the ruling party, their legitimacy of the country is really our system keep so fast growth, so why you change? Now slow down, maybe we come to the moment of the reform. But unfortunately, if you read through of the planning of the document decision, but you just find all reform related to the economic reform, not mentioned in the political reform, political system. Even in the new establishment of the group, we call it a small group or committee, 改革小组. no political reform, 6 subsidiary group, but no political system. But still, we haven't come to the reform of political system yet.
But there's talk, again, this is more Professor He's area, there's talk about an independent judiciary. There's talk,
yeah.
you know, which is obviously not the full road, but it's a step in the right direction towards the road for legal reform.
That's right.
Are there others on the Chinese delegation who wanted to add to this discussion? Otherwise, I'll open the floor to questions from the Americans who are here, or I'll ask more questions, whichever people prefer. Anybody from the Chinese delegation who wanted to add? 有没有人要加几句？
后面几句对，就是请问一下，就是中国团的成员就刚才的问题，有没有人要做一些补充说明的？跟谁说一下？
All right, well then, if there's not, then let's open
他就
the,
是如果我们中国代表团的成员没有人需要补充意见的话，那我们就对整个在场的听众开放问问题了。
yeah, so let's open the floor to questions. We have any? Go ahead.
I have a question from.
Very loud.
Okay, I have a question for Liu Peng. Do you feel that because of the kind of rush towards capitalism, that Chinese people are pushing more towards Western missionary religion as a rejection of what they see as modern Chinese culture and a rejection of their own heritage?
What's the point of your question is for the missionaries is rejected?
The missionary religions, Christianity,
Yeah.
and Mormonism, is there a reason why they're starting to become more popular in China?
You mentioned the missionary that I will say there is no foreign missionary today, but more and more believers 100 times than before, which is you can not see anything to promote missionary. The progress or achievement of materialism or material progress cannot solve the problem of the priority of spiritual issue. So this is an internal problem. It's nothing to do with the missionaries. In fact, people realized in the early time of a republic, China, missionaries did lots of good things. So we really don't think all the problem caused today by foreigners. Someone said this is a bad idea. The foreigners and Western missionaries always want to use religion to turn down China. But this is just propaganda. For people in China, we understand how could you explain in many areas there's no foreigners, but religion keep growing. Who did that? Because the official faith ideology couldn't work, but people need to believe something. So who will meet people's spiritual need if you cannot provide the spiritual products? The demand and the supply cannot be balanced, so people will catch something, believe something. That's why the religion policy has to focus internal issues instead of seeing other reasons. For U.S. China Relations, this is always the issue. I think behind that, the old concept has to be changed.
For Mr. Yong, how much does the government control the dialogue on the internet? In other words, can you have, the belief that the internet has an effect on discussion, and I think you said it can be a check on certain activity, but how much, because we know these blocks, stuff is shandiao, it's always occurring. So how much does the government really control that discussion?
That's very difficult to say. And Mr. Zhou have a platform. It's very good. And gathering all the singer and good article in China. And nobody closed his website, so it's good. But for some young people, they write article, delete it. And in some area, even the people was said to Lao Jiao and labor camp. Oh, of course, labor camp was abolished thanks to the internet citizen. So it's difficult to say. For me, I got a space to write any kind of political article. But for most of the Chinese people, I really don't know. But I think what we are doing right now is to fighting for our space in the virtual world. In the reality, after 1989, they closed every square. But later, IGK now, our square is broader, and it's micro-broader. So we're fighting in there. I think at first, the government actually tolerate us, give us some space, from Jiang to Hu, even to Xi. But I really don't know. Thank you.
And do you think, what percentage of the Chinese people, internet users, can access, for instance, the New York Times, which is blocked in China? How many people through proxy servers do you estimate still read that news?
Okay, not so many people. We have to climb the wall, the invisible wall on internet. It's difficult. But I have to say, sometimes there was no need to climb the wall. Why? Everything we already moved within the wall. That's something happened that I think many foreigners didn't notice. And 15 years ago, I worked in the United States. I got every new information, every new idea from the American scholar and professor. But later, when I go back to China right now, I got everything on the internet within the Chinese world. I don't need to come out. That's the truth. Because I can't really climb the wall. So, New York Times, the good article, you don't need to climb the wall to read. You just translate and through the microblogger and send to everybody if they want to read.
Carl, you had a question.
I have a question for Professor Mao and also for Professor Ke. Central authorities in China are currently investigating Zhou Yongkang, the former Politburo Standing Committee member and head of the Political Legal Committee. This, of course, is the first time in 30 years where you have an investigation of a former Politburo Standing Committee member that is going on. Some people think he will be charged. What do you make of this? Is this a positive thing for the advance of rule of law and governance in China, or is it a negative thing?
Nobody said the questions would be easy.
I don't think it is positive because that means political power of the state at the state level is very dangerous for even the officials at a high rank level. So the best thing is put the state power into Congress. Then the power will work very safely for congressmen or even for administrators. But they don't think like it in my way.
Carl, for me, it's a very good question. And good things for every lawyer, including academic lawyer in China, since under Zhou, under Mr. Zhou Yongkang, we experienced the most hard time in China. The past 10 years, legal reform, the legal construction actually was stopped in China. And during one meeting, Mr. Zhou said, Holy Fang is our enemy. So I'm so lucky enough. But I don't think there's any relation with the legal construction in China, since this is just only simple conflict between the different group among the top leaders, or of course the former top leaders, and I don't think we can find some real intentions about to establish the freedom of speech and judicial independence, and maybe make the so-called national Congress become a real parliament, or I think this is I don't think Mr. Xi Jinping had those ideas. Maybe this is the most worst thing. Yeah. Thank you.
Steve, I want to pick up on the construct that you put about how to tie all of these things together with the slowing economic growth. So to Professor Lee, I'd like to ask you to address the issue of the growing middle class, which is a fairly new phenomenon in China. And with that, the disparity, by the way, which we're facing here in the United States and globally between the rich and the poor, and how this slowing of economic growth will feed perhaps the discontent of this large growing middle class. And the second question I have, which I want to throw out, is on all the issues that have been touched upon, what is the real fear? What is the real fear of both reform in the politics of the country, in openness in religion, and governance, and on and on? Perhaps in America it's a little difficult to understand. I mean, we always know what power, the fear of power and legitimacy does when there is instability of some sort, when you have different groups speaking out. But if you could express what the real fear is in these reforms, I'd appreciate that.
Okay. Firstly, because the economic slowdown, also the better performance of the financial market, also plus pollution. So many middle class, maybe the businessmen, they try to immigrate to United States, to Canada, to Australia, New Zealand, even England. They immigrate out. Now, this actually is one factor contributed to the slowdown of the economy further, because they don't want to invest more in China. So we come here just 4 days. So many business people invite us have dinner, have the lunch. You see, lots of people already lived in New York. That's a problem, further for the Chinese society. Income disparity between the rural and the eastern and the west, the eastern, cool, area and the inland of China, not improved. But if the economy slows down, the rich people immigrate out, they come to the other developed country, maybe reduce the disparity, but still very, 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 very high. That's what I have no study about that. Just my, the impression,
Let me close with a question to Mr. Zhou, actually. As you know, Mr. Zhou has been the founder of all sorts of things, including ConsensusNet, which is a digital platform for political debate within China. So my question for Mr. Zhou is, number one, how many followers do you have? And number two, are there ever instances where the debate is censored? And then after you've answered those questions, you can give your last words to this group.
很高兴说中文的也有一个机会在这儿回答问题。
I'm delighted that as the only person here who doesn't speak English, I actually have an opportunity to answer a question.
我不知道欧文斯先生能给我多少时间。刚才问的问题其实要简单回答也很简单，要复杂呢会很复杂。
I don't know how much time allotted to me by President Orlins, because this is a question, if you want just a simple answer, there's a very simple answer. But I can go on forever because there could be a very complex answer to that too.
那咱们一天上午吧。
其实我觉得欧文斯说中文说的比英文还要好。
Orlins, you should speak Chinese. You speak Chinese better than your English.
That's because my English is so bad.
我在中国做互联网，我曾经做过，我不是曾经啊，我曾经做过一个和正在做着一个，都是很有名的网站，一个是凤凰网，我做过凤凰网的 CEO。
Well, I have, as Orlins said, I have done like many internet platform, digital platforms in China. Actually, once I was the CEO of the Phoenix website.
他那个凤凰网现在不叫 Phoenix， 是叫 iPhone。
iPhone. Oh, okay. Well, he just corrected me. It's no longer called Phoenix, even though in Chinese it's the same. It's called iPhone. Like iPhone?
对。
iPhone
不是 iPhone。
Okay, really.
我现在做了一个网站叫共识网。
Right now, our website is, as you know, is this consensus media.
在这个问题上，其实不用谦虚，凤凰那个共识网是中国现在思想性网站排名第1的。
Well, I don't need to be modest or humble here. I would like to say, intellectually speaking, our website is number 1 in China.
至于中国的互联网政策，我认为有很多的弊端。
Honestly, in terms of the internet policy by Chinese government, I have to say there are many flaws.
为什么呢？是因为中国的宣传部门还没有与时俱进地掌握互联网管理的一些技巧和本领。
And the reason why is because the propaganda agencies of the Chinese government, they haven't marched on with the modern era of internet governance. They do not master the necessary skills as to how to govern this area.
所以呢，他会采取一些比如说删掉一些文章，关闭一些博客，甚至是关闭一些网站这样一些做法。
That's why they have taken the measures such as deleting some postings, even like just deleting the whole blogs, and sometimes just close the website.
2天最新的消息就是，中国又成立了一个互联网管理小组，习近平亲自任组长，李克强和刘云山任副组长。
And the most recent news is actually the Chinese government has formed a new committee governing the internet. And for this committee, actually, the committee leader is President Xi Jinping himself, and the deputy group leader is Li Keqiang and Liu Yunshan.
这说明下一步会更加加大对互联网管理的力度。
This means more censorship and more governance of the internet in China.
但是作为我这样一个在中国共产党的中央机关里工作过16年的人来说，我认为我还是在一定程度上理解现在的一些做法。
Me, I actually personally worked within the Communist Party. I was an insider for 16 years. So to some extent, I have to say I understand why they are behaving like this.
因为共产党把自己的执政地位作为放在非常首要的位置，所以他认为互联网会在某种程度上干扰共产党的执政。
Obviously, the Chinese Communist Party take as a foremost priority its own power to govern China, and it believes firmly that the internet would somewhat at least interfere with its governance and power.
简单的说，下一步我们如何分析网上的一些声音，能够判断哪些是对共产党有利的，哪些是对政府不利的，对共产党不利的，这个是一个很艰巨的任务。
So how do I put it? So the next step for us is to analyze voices on the internet, but how to discern which voices could prove beneficial to the governance of the Communist Party and which voices could prove, would, according to them, harmful, is going to be really tough.
我相信我们在座的这几位专家里面，比如说杨恒军，在网上待的时间比较长，他也经常有一些文章被删掉，但是好在呢，他还没有被全部封杀掉。
I believe like our experts also have some insight about that. For example, Mr. Yang here, he has spent so many years on the internet, and he has written many articles, and quite a few of them have been deleted. But fortunately, he has not, and in Chinese we see he has not been killed yet.
所以我想作为一句总结，从互联网管理部门要提高互联网管理的技术水平。作为网民来说，可能也要在很多方面来适应现在互联网的一些做法。中国因为很复杂，我觉得一直在舆论封闭的一个场景里面，突然有了互联网这样一个工具，可以畅所欲言了，也有些人不会说话了。
Well, let's look at the things from two different aspects. On one aspect, the agencies who are in charge of, governing, supervising the internet, they really need to learn new skills and how to march on with this modern era with the internet. But on the other hand, as we Chinese netizens, we still need to learn how we use the internet, because we have to consider the historical context of China. For a long time, we lived in an environment where there's no public platform like the internet today. So once now we have this digital platform, many of us do not know how to really express ourselves.
因为我占的时间很多了，我就不想再多说了。我们静观中国的变化，而在这种变化中，互联网一定会起着至关重要的作用。
Well, I feel that I have taken up too much time, so I'm going to stop here. But I just want to say the situation in China is very complicated, and what we need to do is to observe, but also to actively participate to see what's going to happen next.
Thank you.
谢谢。